Hi guys, it's Purposely Transforming here, also known as Imani Hunter. Today I have a special guest, my dad.
Hello, Pastor Hunter here.
Because it's Father's Day or that time of the month, I wanted to definitely get my dad on here to ask him a few questions about his childhood into manhood and of course fatherhood. I was his firstborn, for those who may not know, and he is now a father of two girls. I thought it would be great to bring my dad on here to show a different narrative and story about fathers because I am blessed and fortunate enough to have a father in my life, a great example to me. And so I think it would be great to just talk to him and see what shaped him into the father that he is today, because I do believe that it took work. It's not he just woke up and was just a great father. I think he put in effort and he put in work, and he was taught from my grandfather how to then be a great man and father for me. So Dad, we're going to talk about your childhood first, and I want to ask you, what is your favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory was actually playing under my mother's dining room table with my G.I. Joes.
Okay, all right, cool. So then what was your favorite childhood movie?
Favorite childhood movie probably was, it's funny, but Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Wow, really?
I know, right?
That's actually pretty funny. And then my last question, as we transfer into manhood, what is your favorite age? What has been your favorite year? Like the favorite year of your life so far, and what made it your favorite year? Or age range?
I'd say between 18 and 25.
And why?
Well, I was graduating high school. I was developing to my own man. You know, I had to get a job. I got a job, took on some responsibility, bought my first Corvette.
Okay.
And so I was getting all the toys and, things that a young man like myself would have gotten at that time when I was single.
What do you feel for yourself defines a man?
What defines a man? Because everybody, feels just because they were born a male, it makes them a man, but I disagree. Everybody that's a male don't necessarily make you a man. I think when I developed into manhood is when my firstborn was actually born, because once you have a child, you start to realize that it's not about you. You got to start making the sacrifices. And even scripture says obedience is better than sacrifice. So being a devout father, you make a lot of sacrifices, but they're really not sacrifices. It's just something you are equipped to do. You got to take care of your family, regardless of what's going on, what's happening, who's doing what, who's not doing something. You got to do whatever you have to do. That's the type of father that I had. My dad was the type of guy, he was very serious at times, but he had a joking side also.
Yeah.
But Dad taught me how to, regardless of how you feel about something, always take care of your family.
Wow.
Your children are first. Make sure they got a roof over their head. Make sure they got food to eat. Even if you have to go without, make sure they have.
That's good. So you kind of went into fatherhood, but that's okay.
Okay.
That's good.
That.
I expected that to happen. So speaking of Grandpa, what do you feel like Grandpa specifically taught you about being a man, and then specifically taught you about being a father?
About being a man, he taught me just to make sure to mean what you say and say what you mean.
Okay.
He said, don't try to hum and han. He said, a lot of people use the phrase happy wife, happy life. But he said he disagreed with it, and so do I. He said, because if it's one-sided, you're going to always have some type of regret.
Right.
Because if I can constantly do something to make my wife happy, and it's not making me happy,
right,
I would hate for 5-6 years down the road, I bring it up.
Right.
I really didn't want to do that.
Like
I
that resentment.
I really didn't, because I only did it because I know it make you happy.
Right.
Then there's a built up of resentment, and then most men don't know how to deal with their emotions, and one day they would just explode.
Right.
And sometimes the kids suffer from that, the household suffers from that, and even the man himself can suffer health-wise from that.
Right. So then that's, as a man, then what do you feel like Grandpa being a father to you and a great example of a father, what did you really get from him to then become a great father?
One thing that I got from him, he used to talk a lot about his childhood. He was abused. His father, unfortunately, he felt he was abused. I don't know,
right,
what really happened. Only hear,
right,
but I just know that he always said he would never be like his dad. And I'm not saying that was a bad thing. He just thought it was a better way to raise children.
Right.
When you come from the South, they just knew one way. Do what I say, and they don't have to explain nothing to you. And they just, if you didn't do it, they whooped you. But my dad said he raised us in a household where he tried to always talk to us. And my dad never physically put his hands on me, but he used to always whoop me with words. And that hurt more than anything because I always lived my life. I never wanted to disappoint my parents.
Right.
I never wanted to hurt my mom. I never wanted to hurt my dad. So I always tried to live my life according to the fact that I want to make them happy.
Right.
And in making them happy, it made me happy. I have no resentment. I have no regrets on my life, where it is today. Even some of the things that I've been through.
Right.
You know, it's unfortunate that myself and Monty's mother didn't stay married. It wasn't that we were bad. We just couldn't get better together.
Right.
She's a beautiful person. I wish her all the happiness and the blessing on her life that could possibly come her way. And between the both of us, we made this beautiful girl. And one thing I can say about my daughter Imani, she gave me no trouble. You know, sometimes she could be a little difficult.
A little stubborn.
A little stubborn at times. But
I get that from him.
But as far as, you know, gray hair, she didn't give me any. You know, she got through high school, she got through college, and now she has her own home. You know, she has her own car, and she's doing a lot of things that she makes me very, very proud, especially with ministry.
So, Dad, with that being said, you went right into my next question. What do you feel like you specifically learned when I came into this world as a father that Grandpa couldn't necessarily teach you, or that, you know, you just experienced being a father personally to me? What did you really come into and learn as a father?
I'd have to say understanding fatherhood when you were born and they actually handed you to me. You know, sometimes, you know, a woman can walk around pregnant and you rub on her stomach and you see the baby foot kicking and whatnot. But when you actually are handed a baby for the first time,
right,
and you can take a look at it, and now you're looking at yourself and saying, God has entrusted me with this human being.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, it really don't become real until they hand it to you.
Right.
You know, everybody says, I'm having a baby, you know, I'm having a baby, you know, but when they actually hand it to you and that baby look up at you for the first time, you know without a shadow of doubt she's hoping and trusting that you're going to do what you're supposed to do to make sure she has a blessed, safe life.
Right.
And that's what I've actually, you know, came to real to me, that when they actually handed you to me.
That you had to protect me,
protect
and
you,
provide
take care of you,
a life.
provide, and make sure that you have at least an opportunity to grow up as a mature adult and have the opportunities that's awarded in this here lifetime.
Right. What do you or did you enjoy most about being a father? Because, I mean, you're still my father, even though I done grew up. And what did you find the most difficult? So what was the most enjoyable about being a father, and what did you come into finding that was difficult?
The most enjoyable part was, you know, coming home and having my child run into my arms and say, oh, Daddy's home.
I'm a daddy's girl, for those who don't know.
I used to come home from work and I could be dead tired, and Mommy would always run up to me and give me a hug. And it's funny because her little sister does the same thing now.
Yes.
As soon as I hit the door, they would give you 1,000 hugs, you know. And sometimes, I'm not saying you went through anything that day, but sometimes that hug will just allow you to be confirmed and say, you know what, everything's okay.
Right.
You know, regardless of what you had to go through at work, regardless of whatever you might have had to go through at the house, you just know that it's okay. Right. It's like God is saying, you know, He was encouraging me through my kids by just giving me an embrace.
Right.
The other side of it was, I never wanted to have children to a point of where the house was separated. And what I mean by that is, like I said earlier, me and Monty's mother didn't make it.
Right.
You know, and I never wanted my children being in another home and then having to split.
Right.
Because I honestly feel sometimes that can be a bad thing, because you got a set of rules and a set of upbringing at that house.
Right.
And then you got a set of rules and upbringing at this house, and sometimes it can clash.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying it's bad, but I just didn't want that. And that's one of the biggest challenges that I had, you know, when that situation happened. It was a real stressful time for me.
Right.
You know, I prayed a lot. I, you know, worried a lot, unfortunately, but it all worked out, man.
Yes, it's working out. And, you know, with that being said, I think it would be perfect to insert here that though I didn't live with my mother and father in one home, my father was still very much so present with me. And especially like in my childhood, I was mostly with my father. And I think that shapes a different narrative, because we usually see a lot of single mothers and single parent households where it's usually the mother.
Excuse me.
And I want to make it very clear that my mother was very present, but my father was someone that I felt more close to because I was a daddy's girl. And I spent a lot of my childhood with my dad. And as I got older, I went towards my mom more.
Yeah, I'd have to remember, you know, funny you should say that. I was the type of father, I did Girl Scouts.
He had me in everything.
I had sleepovers at the house. Mine used to have her friends come over. I used to make my favorite dish. You can ask all of them. baked beans with sausage cut up in them with a little brown sugar and cinnamon. I'm telling you,
baked beans, guys.
Them
That
kids,
was his signature meal.
Kids used
He
to
could
love
cook,
it.
right?
Them kids used to love it. Then, Mr. Hunter, you gonna make your beans? And I'll be like, I'll make my beans. But I had a basement full of toys for Monty, and I just made sure she had every opportunity to be a blessed kid. Happy, you know, we did one of our favorite meals too was on Saturdays. We should go out to this Philly steak place on Long Pond, get us a steak sandwich and some sweet potato fries. And
I don't even think it's there anymore.
it's still there, but somebody else owns it.
Okay.
But anyway, me and Monty was together, you know, we was really tight until she got about 11, and her mom remarried. And then there was another shift, you know,
right.
to where she was a little, you know, closer to her mom at that time.
Right.
And it wasn't nothing personal. Sometimes I used to be a little sad about it, but excuse me.
Oh.
But it was more of I think at that time, it was time for me to branch out and redefine myself as a person. Mm-hmm. You know, because it was like sometimes you make sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice, and you just feel that, okay, she got to a point now where I felt she could really take care of herself. Mm-hmm. Not wholeheartedly, but she could really take care of herself to a point of, you know, I didn't have to worry so much.
Right.
You know, because now she's old enough, if something is going on in the house that she didn't like, she knows she could call her father. Mm-hmm. If something was going on in the house that she felt was unsafe, she could tell her dad. Not saying that her mother would ever put her in that situation, right. But just some of the people that you never know who you're going to do.
That's good for him to bring that up. My dad is not perfect, and I think that's so important for him to share that he did his best and he did what he always felt was best for me and is best for me. My dad has just been very present, and then on top of that, he's my pastor, and so he's been a great spiritual guide for me and great wisdom for me. And I will eventually bring my mom on here as well, because I do want to do a family series about my parents co-parenting, because I do think that is also important to talk about, because we're living in a time where people are more open to that type of family narrative, when back in the day it was like you didn't really talk about, you know, your parents not being together or encouraging that type of family structure. People were just like, y'all need to work it out for the kids, or, you know, people weren't even encouraged to try and redefine themselves and figure out, you know, what they want to do now after having a child, or after the marriage not really being what it was before the child or during the child. And I think, yes, and so I think it's so important to see both of my parents have these redefining moments and be open enough to, you know, share it with me and talk to me about it now that I'm older, for me to even better understand my childhood and the decisions that my parents made with me in mind. Or like my dad said, understanding that he had poured so much into me that it was time for him to make sure he was taking care of himself. And I think that is so important to bring up, because I think as kids we misinterpret our parents and we forget that our parents are still human and they're not always their best selves. Even though they're trying to be their best selves for us, they're hurting or struggling financially, and that can be taking a toll on them as a person and how they are then parenting you. And like I said, I've been very fortunate and blessed to where my dad's personal issues and things that he was going through didn't really spill over into his parenting with me. Like I said, he did his best, but to hear him be, you know, humble enough and real enough to say, listen, I'm not perfect and I had this time in this moment. And to specifically talk about when I was 11 and went to live with my mom, it was just kind of convenient for the co-parenting situation with school and things of that nature. So I don't want it to sound like I just left my dad, or that my dad kind of told me I had to live with my mom. I want to make it clear that the transition was really smooth, and it was just, you know, a decision they made together as parents.
And I want to reiterate that, you know, I was pouring so much into Monty, and at the time, I think God knew what he was doing, because
intentional,
when Monty went to stay with her mother a little bit more, it gave me a chance to refuel. Because like I said, sometimes you pour so much in everything else, and you're trying so hard to make sure everything is smooth. Because one thing I didn't want to happen, excuse me, I never wanted Monty to think I was abandoning her in any capacity. You know, so I always called her, always checked on her, always went by there, and always made sure that she had whatever she needed. Yeah. But at that time, I also needed time for me. Right. You know, so I think God worked it out to where she understood it. And I'm quite sure there was some times where she felt, where's Daddy? You know, why isn't Daddy here more? Or who is Daddy with now? You know, or who is this individual? Because I know there was a time when I started actually dating again on a serious level. I'm quite sure she felt a little bit like, you know, like, wow, like, who is this? Are they going to be taking my spot? Or who is this person spending a lot of time with my dad? And it was never I never wanted her to feel that she was being replaced.
Mm-hmm.
But God was putting somebody in my life that I needed
Right.
at that time to help me refuel.
Right.
And feel, I'm not going to say I felt empty, but there was some spots in my life that had some vacancies that needed to be filled.
Yes. And I think with that being said, it's great to bring up that I feel within my childhood and within even viewing a lot of my friends' life, that even if your parents are not being the best parents to you, I truly believe that God will place other mentors and other adult figures in your life at times to kind of fill the gaps, to have certain conversations with you that you couldn't have with your parents. I know that for me, I was kind of called the teacher's pet in elementary school, and I got close to a lot of teachers in elementary, and I think it was necessary because of my situation growing up. I didn't necessarily understand it at the time, but I really feel that God was even intentional in surrounding me with positive people who just poured into me and asked me how I was doing and really had conversations with me that I won't say that I couldn't have with my parents, but that I didn't even know I should have been talking to my parents about, or things I didn't know I felt until certain adults came into my life to ask me. So I would say to be very mindful of, even if you don't have a present father or a present mother, I strongly believe that God is placing someone around you guys to show you that he cares, to show you that, this is an adult figure that is going to love you and not abuse you, that is going to be worth it to give your trust to. I don't want to ever, put my dad on here as to say that this is exactly how your father should have been, or, I know that people deal with a lot of emotions around Father's Day. Some people's fathers are dead. Just so many things.
Weren't there. And I do want to reiterate this.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, well, my dad ain't never done nothing for me. And I try to always get people to understand and remember this. If your dad didn't do nothing else for you, he gave you life.
Yes.
He may not have been there like you had hoped. He may not have been there like you had wanted. Or he may not have been like your friend's dad. But the bottom line is you're here. And so you have to make the best of it. Like my daughter just said, God will place mentors in your life, whether it's a deacon, whether it's a pastor, whether it's just a friend or family, whether it's an uncle, that can help nurture you into the man or woman you're supposed to be.
Yes.
So never hold a grudge against somebody that you felt was not there enough.
Yes.
Because God is forever present help. He'll be a father for you, a mother for you, etc. So God is all you really need.
Right.
And the fact that you're here, God has purpose for you.
Amen. That is so on point with my theme for my channel, which is purposely transforming. God is always intentional. And I know that we don't always see it and understand, well, why couldn't I have two parents, or why couldn't I have two married parents? But I really have begun to just see the purpose and intent behind it all. And even in times of not understanding, I just trust God, because I know that his plan for my life is always better than what I can ever plan for myself. Last 3 questions as we close out is, how do you want to be remembered? So when, God forbid you leave here, my grandfather has left here, and before my dad answered that question, my grandfather is remembered for his words of wisdom. As you heard my dad say, people will quote things my grandpa said probably forever. And, so that's one thing that I believe, God was intentional about through my grandfather, that words that came out of his mouth and through his ministry, because my grandfather was a pastor as well, will never leave from the earth. My grandfather left here, but his words of wisdom from God are still here and still being spoken through other people. And I believe that is probably one way he did want to be remembered, that his words were not said on deaf ears or vain. What is it? In vain. Same difference. Yeah, in vain.
Let's see. How would I want to be remembered? I would want to be remembered as a man of God first and foremost.
Right.
And a man of God who had a unique ministry. For those who haven't ever heard me preach or been to the church before, God gave me a special ministry. It's different. It's a ministry that can reach the oldest person in the church as well as the youngest person in the church. And I also want to be remembered for my sense of humor. I'm a very fun-loving, easygoing pastor. And my gear, too. I got, you know what I'm saying? My gear is tight, you know what I'm saying?
My dad's a trip.
But on a serious note, I just want to remember it as a man that did his best.
Yes.
And allowed the best that God put inside me to come forward.
Amen. If my dad wasn't as sick, he would probably be way more goofy than what he is
right
now.
I'm fighting some allergies.
Yeah,
and I do apologize. So maybe we'll do this again and just be talking, maybe some free talk.
Right. I was gonna say I can get more questions from them.
I'm a little stopped up, so I do apologize.
What advice do you have for young fathers who may have just embarked into fatherhood or may still be a father and they're dealing with, like you said, not having their kid maybe in one home or whatever the case may be? What is something that you can just encourage them with or say to them as a new father or young father?
Don't parent based on what the other parent is doing.
That's good.
You have to parent, whether it's, don't parent based on, okay, if she's going to give 50%, I'm only going to give 50%. You have to be a father 100% of the time. Whether that woman or that man is not doing the things you feel they should be doing,
right?
You have to do it in spite of. Sometimes, things might not have worked out like you planned, and sometimes you have some hatred in your heart. You got to get delivered from that. Because the child didn't ask to be here. Now that they are here, it's up to both of you to take the opportunity to raise this child the best way you know how.
That's good.
So, you got to always look at it and say to yourself, they did not ask to be here.
Right.
But the fact they are here, it had to be in God's plan. So the fact God blessed you with this individual, now it's your time to take that blessing and make it a blessing.
And it's never too late. We've had deacons come through our church and people come through our church and taking the present time to not necessarily fix things or try to replace the time that was lost, but understanding that God will place forgiveness in people's hearts, and then it'll create an opportunity and a time for you to, not necessarily have the strongest bond, but some type of connection that you that didn't necessarily happen in the past. That there's basically what I'm saying is there's always time and room for forgiveness and for reconciliation between you and your child, or you and a sibling, or you and a
you and an individual.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have babies and everything, and sometimes people say it just happened. And I'm a firm believer that nothing just happens.
Yeah,
it's choices that we make, and even the fact that you could say it just happened, but God never said oops. He has never said my bad.
Ooh, I didn't mean to make that.
I didn't mean to let
that's
come
good.
forth like that.
Yes,
so
that's good.
If it's here, God had a purpose for it.
Amen.
So we live in a lifestyle where we try to always make excuses for something happening. But in bottom line is you made that decision and that choice at that time.
Yeah.
So that time was at that time, which is God's time. That baby's here now. So now I can't be mad at the woman, because for those few moments, you two got together. You liked each other.
Something about each other.
Sometimes it grew bigger than that, and sometimes it was strictly physical. But the bottom line, you conceived and gave birth to something. So now that you gave birth to it, it's your obligation to take care of it. Now, you got to take care of it.
Your responsibilities, be accountable to the choices that you made.
That's right.
So that's all my questions, guys. I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little close to 30 minutes, so maybe I'll do a part 1, part 2, or just let you guys watch the whole thing.
And again, I apologize. I'm not feeling 100%. My head's kind of stuffy, so I do apologize. So please forgive me for having on, my gear ain't right. So I do apologize.
He would have rather did this on a Sunday, guys. He wanted to do it in his suit, but I was really trying to get this up for Father's Day. But we'll see what happens. But I am so happy that my dad joined me on this YouTube journey, purposely transforming. If you guys didn't get anything else out of this video, I hope that you understand the power in your choices. So therefore, if you have a child, or if you are in a situation doing things that could possibly bring a child into this world, be understanding and mindful and intentional about the choices you're making. Just wanted to encourage you guys to forgive. If nothing else happens around Father's Day because you don't have a present father, just make sure you are not carrying any unforgiveness in your heart.
And sometimes forgiveness is not necessarily for the person. It's for you.
It's for you.
It's a release. God will release you from something that's holding you if you just learn to forgive. And speak positive things into your children.
And yourself.
I hear so many people say, you act just like your mother. No, you act just like God intended you to be.
Yeah.
And speak positive things into their life. Never call them stupid. You never know. You might be sitting there bringing up the next president of the United States. You never know.
Never know. And with that being said, my dad has always affirmed me. And always spent a lot of time with me. And I wanted to bring that up because it became my love languages. If you guys ever heard of the 5 love languages, there's quality time, acts of service, physical touch, gifts, and words of affirmation. And my top 2 love languages is quality time and words of affirmation. And I brought that up because I wanted to bring to the light that how you love your child or how you don't love your child can turn into how they look for love in other places or how they want to receive love or give love to others. And so my dad has done his best to spend time with me. He's been present. I'm telling you, your presence means more. It means so much more than anything you can give, than anything else you can give your child, in my personal opinion. The presence, having them there. And secondly, words of affirmation, as my dad just said, speaking life into your children, telling your children, you know, the great things that they are, or just that you love them. Yes. And showing it, not just saying it. So I really, really hope that you guys got something from it and that you're encouraged. And happy Father's Day to the fathers that are watching. And, you know, also I hope that this will encourage you to just have a conversation with your father. You know, take some time out to see what happened in their childhood that could have shaped them into the father that they are or were not to you. So I think it's important, if you have the opportunity, have a conversation if you can, because I know that sometimes that's not the opportunity everyone has. But if you can, have a conversation. So much understanding can come from a conversation. So I love you all. I hope that you guys continue to subscribe and share and comment below if there's any specific questions that you would like for me to bring my father back on for, or just know about me personally. And I hope to have this video up very soon. So,
and I hope you like the video. That way you ask for her to have me back.
He wants to come back. So I'm going to figure out some things that me and him can do together. And I will put our church information in the description box below so that you guys can come visit and hear a word from my father. So bye, guys.
Take care.